So this topic that I have chosen tonight, existentialism from Dostoevsky to Sartre, including Nietzsche as well, is my arbitrary choice. I've only chosen these three philosophers as the main representatives of existential thoughts, although there are many other philosophers, great philosophers, but I couldn't have just put them all together tonight because of the scope of this event. So the three that I'm going to be talking about are going to be Dostoevsky, Nietzsche, and Sartre. But this is also important to mention that there are other philosophers, as I said. For example, Tolstoy is a great existential philosopher. Also Camus, then Schopenhauer. These are all existential philosophers because they are all dealing with the issue of existence. And also Heidegger and his famous motto, his famous credo, what it means to be. So it's always about that existence, what it means to be. But this time I'm going to narrow the choice to these three giants of philosophy. And I also wanted to link this lecture tonight as much as possible to things that are relevant to us, moderns. So what is it that makes existentialism so attractive to us now, so important actually? And I personally believe that it's very, very important, and you will see why I think this way. First of all, I want to talk about something that I find not really understood properly and also incorporated and put in action today. And this is personal integrity, which is unavoidable from personal responsibility. So we live in the world of liberal democracy when the freedom and allowance of everything is there on the plate for us, but most of us forget that this is also coming together with personal responsibility. Funny enough, nobody talks about that, because if you're a party leader and you talk about personal responsibility, most likely nobody will vote for you. But we're going to talk about it tonight, because nobody has to vote for me anyway, so I don't care. Existentialism sees personal integrity not as a moral luxury, but as the core of what it means to be a human being. So without integrity, none of these three great philosophers saw a real human being in existence. So integrity is absolutely essential, right? Now there are different views. I'm going to start just with the announcements of few views from Sartre, Dostoevsky, and Nietzsche. For example, for Sartre, integrity means owning your own freedom. And Sartre famously says, we are condemned to be free. So we are free, therefore we have to make choices. And those choices are automatically attached to responsibilities. I will go deeper into this explanation of Sartre's famous credo, we are condemned to be free. When it comes to us, why is that so important? You have probably, everybody has heard from many people around you saying the following: oh, I didn't make it because it wasn't me, it was up to the society. Oh, it was my family. Oh, it was my culture. Oh, it was the history. Oh, it's genetics. But in all the time, there is somebody else's case. Sartre would just see this as a very poor excuse into something that he calls bad faith. And bad faith is living the life which is not actually you, but is something else. For Nietzsche, integrity means creating your own values. Nietzsche was the biggest critic of Christianity and religion in general. So creating your own values means that you should stop being seduced and misled with imposition of external evaluation, whatever that is, and from whoever that comes, either another individual, religion, ideology, state, because you can be deceived quickly. If you don't have your own views and if you don't create your own values, you're going to get into the trap of fragmentation and emptiness. And you're going to be easy target, especially for ideologies. So, interesting enough, Nietzsche saw that as the biggest problem of the coming century. Nietzsche writes in the end of 19th century. So he saw that the 20th century will bring catastrophes like humanity never seen before. I mean, we always say prophets, Mohammed, Jesus, and others. But nobody has seen future as clearly as Nietzsche did. And what did he see? He saw that individuals are lacking integration. They don't have integrity, personal integrity. And therefore, they're going to be easily manipulated, deceived, and used, and ultimately abused. And this is exactly what happened in the 20th century. 2 world wars, like humanity never seen before, masses of humanity on both sides. You have different ideologies. You have, for example, in the Second World War, you have a national socialism on one side, with millions of people approve. They are deceived by that national socialism, and they're going to die for it. Why? Because ideology has created their values. They didn't have integrity. They didn't create their own values, as Nietzsche was suggesting it should be done. On the other side, you have communism. Again, the same story, just a different color. Again, millions of people just thrown into that, into chaos, because they're defending ideology. Why? Because they don't have personal integrity. So, as we all know, there is no such a thing as a nation, right? It's a concept. There is no such a thing as a British army. It's a concept. Nation is made, this one here, of 60 million individuals. Army is made of 50,000 soldiers, etc., etc. So you see how everything comes down to the individual. So you cannot just talk about some, metaphysical, abstract concept and decide about individuals. It's the other way around. For Nietzsche, individuals are the ones who were supposed to create their own integrity and their own values, and that way managed to avoid being deceived into the catastrophe. Beautiful prophecy. So integrity means not lying to yourself, not using morality as a disguise for weakness, living with a unity with your character. And modern life, unfortunately, encourages conformity, comfort, resentment, victimhood, avoiding discomfort, and blaming the world for one's fate. And all this luxury of being misled, never to develop your own integrity, actually leads to that ideological manipulation. So we are all, or at least most of us, very much prone to that. Now, for Dostoevsky, integrity is bearing the weight of freedom. So what is freedom for Dostoevsky? Freedom is to decide in the world of chaos, in the world of exploitation, in the world of inequality, poverty, is to decide that something is right, and then you have to act in that way. But acting in the world of chaos, in the world of corruption, in the world of evil, acting is going to make you pay the big price for that. And he beautifully explains that, especially in his novel Crime and Punishment, when Raskolnikov decides to take justice in his own hands, and he does a just thing, but is actually a criminal act. And for that reason, Raskolnikov has no other option but at the end of the novel to actually admit what he has done, and through faith and God find repentance and actually find peace. So for Dostoevsky, people are lost in their choices. Anxiety comes from lack of direction, and also the search of meaning outside oneself. So what integrity can bring to modern people? What can we expect from integrity? First of all, integrity gives inner stability. You know who you are, you know what you stand for, and you are not manipulated by trends or ideologies. So that inner stability is critical for authenticity. You will see in a bit what Sartre says about it. Also, integrity eliminates self-conflict. People without integrity are fractured. There is a collision of different parts of oneself. There's a constant fight inside. Should I do this? Should I do that? But I feel this way. Maybe I should do the other way. Or maybe I'm feeling wrong. So that confusion, that self-blame is actually eliminated with strong integrity. Integrity also creates self-respect, as it's very common in modern world. People have very low self-confidence and self-esteem, and that comes from lack of integrity. Integrity gives direction in life. It removes confusion, paralysis, indecisions. Also, integrity builds stronger relationships, because when you have integrity, people are more likely to be with you. They want to be with you because they know who they are with. They know that you are what they see. Integrity attracts. It's like a magnet. So relationships usually fracture when integrity is lost, or maybe never been there in the first place. Also, integrity protects you from manipulation. If you have integrity, as all three thinkers have agreed, you are able to decide about your own values, you're forming your own character, and therefore it's not going to be easy to manipulate you. And we live in the world of manipulation. Just look at the marketing, look at the media, trends, fashion, even politics. Wherever you look, pressure for achievement, outside judgments, all these factors actually put modern individual in a very difficult position. So modern people, we are the ones who actually need integrity more than at any other state of development of civilization. Let me slowly slide into these three philosophers, which I believe, I hope we're going to have enough time so I can tell you more about them one by one, but if not, we can tackle that issue when you have your questions. There are three starting points. For example, for Dostoevsky, there is a tragedy of human existence and human freedom. So for Dostoevsky, freedom is dangerous. So when you are free to decide and free to act, you are going to suffer. And that suffering for Dostoevsky is actually absolutely necessary path to redemption. So without suffering, great suffering, you will never come to that moment of discovering God or faith. And this is why every single hero, every main character of Dostoevsky in all his novels is actually the one who suffers tremendously. Prince Mishkin in Idiot, Alyosha in Brothers Karamazov, Underground Man in The Man from Underground, and obviously Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. So for Dostoevsky, his existentialism is religious, is psychological, and is tragic. Now for Nietzsche, existentialism is all about is liberation from morality. So Nietzsche despises morality, and he uses that term in the pejorative sense, something negative, because it has been imposed on humanity from religion. So humans, who are all different, cannot have morality which is absolutely the same for everyone. So religion or communism or socialism, you have the same story in a different clothing. So when you impose the same measures to all, you're cutting the heads of people who are a little bit taller, but what are you doing? You're giving them more room for people who are shorter. And these are the people, as Nietzsche will call them, the last men, who will be happy with this extra imposition of morality and values. For Sartre, is absolutely radical atheism. There is no God. And for that reason, we live in absolute freedom. We are free to act, we are free to choose, and even not making a choice is a choice. But there is a catch. For Sartre, responsibility again goes very close with our free choices. So, as he explains in all his novels, brilliant novels, you will see that thing is absolutely non-negotiable. So there is no God, and we live in ultimate, absolute freedom. But he says we are condemned to freedom because there is nothing easy about being free. What are you going to do when nobody thinks for you? Immanuel Kant, for example, called the immaturity as one's inability to live his life without the guidance of another. So how beautifully this is said. And that doesn't have to do anything with age. You can be immature even when you're 80 years old. So this old floskula about age and wisdom, no. It just doesn't work like that. So immaturity is inability to live one's own life without the guidance of another. And this is exactly what Sartre takes as a pillar of his existential philosophy. Now, when it comes to the question of God, for Dostoevsky has a problem. He wrestles with God in all his novels. He is not necessarily convinced that religion is right, although he criticizes heavily Catholicism in a Great Inquisitor especially, which is the 5th book in Brothers Karamazov. And he is in favor of Orthodox Christianity, but he is not 100% clear about that. So he wrestles with that because he introduces Ivan, who is an atheist. And Ivan, who is Alyosha's brother, throws the beautiful story of Grand Inquisitor and actually denies everything that religion in general offers to humanity. So Dostoevsky was never 100% clear about religion. Is it right or not? Contrary to Tolstoy, for example, who completely rejected religion, even his own Orthodox Christianity, as a manipulated, corrupted institution which has nothing to do with Jesus' teaching. And by accident, I have written as well about that. So if you're interested, you can read my article on Nietzsche and Jesus. On Academia, it's published there, academia.edu. And I debate my view about Jesus' teaching, and you will see how little that has to do with everything you know about religion, and Christianity especially. It has nothing to do with the story that we have been sold. There is so much to be said, but I want you to talk as well. So let me just quickly give you the synopsis of major works and their importance for their contribution to existential philosophy. I will start with Dostoevsky and his phenomenal first book, which is called The Man from Underground. I wish, I hope you will all read it, who didn't, because imagine Nietzsche was absolutely impressed with Dostoevsky and his psychological insight and analysis of human beings. And whenever we talk psychology, I had in few occasions even people here who got a degree in psychology, but they never read Dostoevsky. And this is like, you watch football, but you never watch Barcelona or Real Madrid, for example. So really, what do you know about football? I mean, as a metaphor. So this is the pillar. Nietzsche and Dostoevsky, especially Dostoevsky, and Nietzsche, they are the fathers of everything that we can call psychology. And everything else that has come later in the form of Freud or Jung is a plagiarism, very cheap plagiarism. Even Jung admitted it a few times. Freud never admitted it. He lied openly to the world. But lie has short legs, so can't run long. Sooner or later he has to stop. So whoever doubts this, please do the research and you will see what am I saying. So that great psychologist, Dostoevsky, gives us the man from underground. He doesn't give him the name. maybe this is symbolic, is a metaphor of everybody who is similar to that man. And this is the man who is very intelligent. He's 40 years old. He's overconscious. He overanalyzes everything. He is cynical. He is contradictory. He is isolated. He is resentful and also painfully honest. Again, very similar to Prince Myshkin from Idiot. So every time he introduces his main character, they're all honest, very, very honest. And being as such, man from the underground despises the world outside. He is not social because he doesn't have anybody to socialize with. He is anti-rationalism, anti-utilitarianism, anti-modernity, which favors only material wealth over other forms of wealth, which are actually more important, which I like to call inner wealth, which is our moral wealth and our aesthetic wealth. So man from the underground doesn't like the world as it is. So he debates and he says, gentlemen, you are praising rationality, you are praising that the goodness comes from science and technological advances, but can you please just look at the history for a moment and let us see where we have arrived now with all our technology? You said that the world is always rational, but look at the history again. Wars, carnage, death. Is that rational? Is man rational? Are we more rational now because we have science developed and we have technology better than ever? But we are just more able to destroy. So we can actually exploit all this negativity in us and, wipe out even more millions than ever before. Dostoevsky wrote this end of 19th century again. So he has foreseen where technology goes and what humanity is going to do through the individual. Because he says individual is not rational. He doesn't want rationality. And explicitly, Dostoevsky says through the underground man, so you can put the man in the environment when he doesn't have to do anything, he doesn't have to work. But you will give him all the food and drink, the best that he can imagine. And he has nothing to do, just to enjoy his life and to worry about extension of the species. And then he said, what is going to happen? The man will still find a way to trick you, because man doesn't want rationality. Man is essentially irrational. So this is the message that comes from underground man. Man wants freedom to desire nonsense. And he said, you are praising science, you are praising mathematics, you are praising logic. And he says, I come to the point when I actually think, when this develops even further, you will be able to predict everybody's life. And then, what is going to be left for us to do? I will know everything that is going to happen in the future, so there's nothing to do for me. But, he says, the man is not a piano key. The man doesn't want to be just of instrumental value, which actually is the biggest objection of existentialism to the modern world, through lack of integrity. So when you lack integrity, you become piano key, and somebody will just press whenever, whatever he pleases. So basically, this is probably the first existential, the most powerful existential book ever written. So before Sartre came to his heyday, this was already laid down for Sartre. So Sartre had a much easier job to do than Dostoevsky and Nietzsche. It's very interesting that Dostoevsky and Nietzsche lived at the same time, but didn't know much about each other. And towards the end of his life, Nietzsche discovered Dostoevsky, and he was very upset that he didn't discover him earlier. And he said that man was of such a magnitude that he should have lived next to Jesus in the same street. So imagine the comparison. It's just phenomenal. And you see, I wanted to say a few more words about other Dostoevsky's work, but I will stop with this, and then, thanks to your wise questions, I will continue to other works of Dostoevsky. The same will apply to Nietzsche. Yeah, Brothers Karamazov, this is phenomenal. This is something that we can go through questions and answers. And Nietzsche, Zarathustra is obviously a very important work regarding existentialism. But let me go and tell you a few words about the gay science, which is absolutely a brilliant book. He started writing it in 1882 and then finished in 1887. There were a few chapters published, and then at the end there are, I think, 2 more chapters added in 1887. So why I see the gay science so important when it comes to existential values. So in gay science, Nietzsche first time introduces the death of God. He brings the madman into the town, and the madman comes and starts saying to people that the God is dead. And he said, and we have killed him. We are the ones who has unchained the earth from the sun. We are the ones who have drunk the whole of the ocean. We are the ones who wiped out the horizon, the whole of the horizon. We have killed him. And people just laughed at him. So what Nietzsche says that is basically we have killed God, because with the development of science, we don't need religion anymore. But now what are you going to do? As Dostoevsky says, if God is dead, then everything is allowed. So that's existentialism. That's absolute freedom, which Sartre built later on. But madman comes and delivers the message that God is dead. And people start laughing at him. And then Nietzsche introduces the last man. This is the last man who remained, but actually is a representative of the masses. And the last man said, well, but we have introduced happiness. So it doesn't matter that God is dead. We are happy. We have introduced happiness. We don't need you and to tell us that we need to revalue the values and introduce our own values, because we already have values. And then Nietzsche says, when Buddha died, the shadow of Buddha hovered over the caves for thousands of years. So God is dead, but religious belief is still there and is hovering. Is actually within the mentality of humanity. And the madman goes away, but the message has been delivered. God is dead. So what do we do now? In aphorism 290 in gay science, the famous aphorism 290, Nietzsche says, what are we going to do now? He says, one thing is needful. And he says, to give style to one's character. This is great and a rare art, and is performed by those who have strength to inquire into themselves, use all strengths and weaknesses and also reason, and then put them in artistic form. Give them an artistic form. So why artistic? Why artistic? Because art is where the freedom is. Artist is a creator. He doesn't care about the rules. He is free. He creates. This is why Nietzsche wants us to perform that great and rare art, to look inside, to observe all our strengths and weaknesses, and give them an artistic form. Again, what are strengths and weaknesses? These are our drives, our passions, our desires. And we have to calculate them together with our reason, take all together and give it an artistic form, our own. And he says also, it is only the weak characters without power over themselves that hate the constraint of style. So weak characters don't want to do that because they can't do that. They will still cling to Schopenhauer pessimism or Christianity, and they will end up their lives believing that the better life, because it's not here, he's obviously never going to be here for a weak character, the better life is somewhere else. So I'm going to give my life for whatever values I have been taught and I've been presented, but I know that the reward is the greatest one. I'll go to heaven. An amazing premise and promise. If somebody says to you, do this, and then I'll give you 10 million pounds, you're going to look at him and says, really? Where are you going to find them? Well, in the other world. You will never do that. You will never do that. And put that concept, that reasoning, that analogy into any other environment, and you will never follow that. But when it comes to that ultimate promise, eternity, it works. And this is why religion is so powerful. And this is why Nietzsche fought all his life against that imprisonment of human soul by succumbing to these external evaluations which are acting as prison. Well, I think I will give myself luxury of another few minutes just to tell you something about Sartre. Again, nausea, being a nothingness, existentialism is humanism, amazing work of Sartre. Also No Exit, beautiful play in which he proclaims that famous hell is other people. But again, we need to go through that through questions and answers. Again, I think I've taken a quite big optimistic material for tonight. But let me just mention you in a few sentences, give you a synopsis of Nausea, which was written in 1938. So the main character in this novel is Quentin. He's a historian. He's about 40 years of age. And he has been sent to the small town in France to actually write some historical inquiry about a political figure called Marquis de Relebon. Now what happens with Quentin? He experienced nausea. He's not comfortable with himself. He's never restful. He's constantly entertaining the idea that his life is meaningless, unfulfilled, that whatever he does, it simply doesn't matter. And he sees himself just wasting his time, literally being in prison doing this, on this historical figure, writing history about that person, which has nothing to do with him. So Quentin experienced nausea. And that is a physical and existential discomfort triggered by a revelation of pure existence. Now, what happens to him? Sartre positioned him in the park, and he's sitting down and looking at the tree, big chestnut tree, the big roots there. He's thinking about nothingness. He thinks how meaningless that tree is and these roots. And that we are the ones who give meaning to that object. But in reality, it's too real actually, it's grotesque, it's excessive, but without any justification, without any meaning. So all that mass of roots in front of him means absolutely nothing. So he concludes that existence without essence. So why is this important to understand? That existence is without essence. Because when it comes to essence, Schopenhauer, religions, Plato, Aristotle, they all believed that there is an essence, because God has created us, so we must have godly essence. So we come to this world with essence already. But Sartre's major point in his existentialism is there is no such thing. It's only existence. It's only our choices and our actions. And therefore existence precedes essence. So looking at this tree, we have got no essence at all unless we give it to it. He also splits the things in two categories. Think on itself, these are objects, they have no essence, and thinks for itself. And this is us humans. Why? Because we understand that we don't have essence. And then nothingness gives us freedom to change, gives us freedom to decide, to choose. And this is that ultimate freedom, which comes with great responsibility. So existence precedes essence. This is the key element that comes from nausea. Eventually, Rollebaum abandons his job. He realizes that he is the man without essence because he is doing something that is not him. And this is another big existential characteristic of Sartre's philosophy. And this is that bad fate, when you live the life which is not you. So Sartre says you cannot just be a waiter or a bus driver or a husband or a wife. You're more than that. You're a human being. So don't constrict yourself into simply one function of your life and end there, because you have choices. You can always change things. And living that false life, which most of the people do most of the time, is for Sartre absolutely reprehensible, is unacceptable. And this is what he calls bad fate. So Roquentin decides to change. And he starts thinking about himself. So how is he going to change? Roquentin finds the answer in art. He wants to write a novel. Obviously, Sartre talks about himself because he is an artist. He is a novelist, apart from being a philosopher. But what his philosophy gives us is actually that freedom to choose, that ability to become, to create our essence. He is very, very optimistic. And he thinks that everybody should follow his advice. I think I'm going to stop here. And let me just say who influenced who. So Dostoevsky influenced Nietzsche and also Sartre. Nietzsche influenced Sartre a lot. And Nietzsche was also impressed by Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky never heard anything about Nietzsche. Unfortunately, they didn't know each other. Now, what do you think they would say about each other? So Nietzsche would probably despise Dostoevsky's religious existentialism. Dostoevsky would see a danger in Nietzsche's Übermensch or Overman. Sartre will see in Nietzsche repression of universal freedom. And Nietzsche would see in Sartre simply hiding in the herd morality. So I hope I've given you a few ideas. So I would expect from you now questions that I hope I will answer. And I'm going to give you the floor now. Thank you.